What's going on, guys? B. Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your waiver wire. Heading into week number 9. It's crazy. We're halfway through the season, and we're looking ahead. Obviously, some injuries that happened on Sunday, Derrick Henry being the largest one. So, I'm going to go through some waiver wire targets heading into week number 9 that could hopefully help bolster or fill some holes for you going into some big bye weeks. So, keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, guys, and welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we're going over the waiver wire heading into week number 9. Obviously, some big injuries, Derrick Henry being the biggest one, potentially out for the season. So there's going to be some running backs I'm going to talk about that hopefully can fill a little bit of that role. Obviously, if you're an owner of Derrick Henry, it's a huge letdown. But let's get to the action. Before we get today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff, and then comment. If there's a player I don't mention, because I got about 10 names on this list, then drop in the comment section if you didn't hear it, and I'll be glad to give you my opinion on that player. And then if you have any questions at all, drop in the comment section, and I'll be glad to give you my advice. So let's start. I like to start at the quarterback position personally. I got 3 guys that you could potentially be picking up here. Some of them are stream options, some of them little long-term plays. So first off, I'm going to start with Tua. He's a good stream option heading this week at home to the Houston Texans. It's just a good spot for Tua. He's played well over the last 3 games, albeit, yes, the Buffalo Bills, I had him as a sit. It's a tough matchup, but he's still averaged 42 dropbacks over his last 3 games, and he gets the Houston Texans. So, in my opinion, he's an obvious start this week. A great stream option for week number 9. Another guy, Tyrod Taylor, looking like he's going to be coming back off injury. He played well through the first 2 weeks of the season. Before getting hurt in the game against Cleveland, he was playing pretty well in that game as well. And they're at the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins defense, we know, has struggled mightily. So Tyrod Taylor could be a potential streaming option, and honestly, going forward, could be a decent option if he's fully healthy. They're saying he's getting the practice, had a little bit of the first team reps last week. So he's a guy that I could be picking up and potentially be starting here in a few weeks if he's ready to go. And then another guy, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Now, yes, Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill. I mean, obviously, I would assume Taysom Hill should be the starter if healthy. And if he is healthy, I like him as a low-end quarterback. I mean, he gets the rushing ability. You know what he possesses there. And his passing ability is not too shabby. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay. I think the offense is going to run through the running backs anyway, and Taysom Hill will be a decent option, especially when it comes to the red zone. He was already making plays, getting touchdowns early on. So Taysom Hill is a guy, if you're really struggling at the quarterback position, you happen to have Sam Darnold as your starter or somebody like that, Taysom Hill is a guy you could be looking towards. They get the Atlanta Falcons this week, then on the road to Tennessee, on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles. No defenses that really scare me there. So Taysom Hill is a good option if you're really looking, because Jameis Winston is obviously out for the season with the torn ACL. And then, in my opinion, I would look towards acquiring or getting Ryan Tannehill. Now, yes, Derrick Henry is out. This is going to shake up the defense and how they play the Tennessee Titans, but that means they might be leaning on Tannehill a little bit more here. Now, yes, Julio Jones, that's affecting the passing game a little bit, but you see, A.J. Brown is a very talented receiver. I think Ryan Tannehill, you might see him running with his legs even more. So I like Tannehill going forward. Some people think he might struggle. I actually like him as a better option. Hopefully, they can get some sort of running game going without Derrick Henry. And then on top of that, if Julio Jones can get back on the field, that's going to help that passing attack immensely. So Ryan Tannehill, I like him down the stretch. I really do. I know some people are going to, backlash on this, but I like him. So Tannehill, he's an option, obviously, if you can get him at a cheap price. So let's talk about the running backs. This is the most important about the waiver wire. Jeremy McNichols, we got to talk about him. So yes, he's the passing down back for the Tennessee Titans. He's carried big workloads in college, so he does have a pedigree of running the football. Early downs especially, but he's not very big, 5'9", I want to say over 200 pounds, but I think he's going to get the first crack at not necessarily this full workload. Now, yes, Adrian Peterson's name, they already brought him in to work him out this morning. Is he a speculative ad? Maybe in deeper leagues. I think Adrian Peterson, even if he does get signed, does make his way into a starting role. You're looking at probably 10 to 15 carries for Adrian Peterson. Now, Derrick Henry was averaging 27 carries through the first 8 weeks of the season. So, my guess is that Jeremy McNichols would probably be seeing somewhere about 10, maybe 12 early down carries. And then on top of that, he's going to get a lot of the receiving work. So I like him as a good ad here. Now, yes, you can't necessarily bolster him as being this RB1 potential. I think he's going to be a solid middle-of-the-pack RB2, a guy that you could potentially be plugging and playing here every single week in these matchups because his game script is great. He'll get some early down work, and I think even in negative game script, he's going to be on the field in passing down work. So Jeremy McNichols, the biggest ad of this week. Got to be rostering him. Obviously, got to be weathering your expectations here because, yes, he is not Derrick Henry. But I think he's going to get the first crack at a decent workload, and we know he already gets the receiving down work. So a guy that's probably going to see 15 to 18 touches potentially on a weekly basis, knowing how they work their running backs. And I don't think even if they did bring Adrian Peterson in or a couple of guys on the practice squad, whoever fills in and fits that bill, I just don't see him carrying that kind of workload. So I like McNichols going forward as a potential mid-range RB2. And then there's Carlos Hyde. This is another speculative ad. He's super high on the transactions list. This is my worry. James Robinson, he was on the sideline. He was running sprints and trying to get his ankle loosened up. I don't think his ankle is that severe, but guess what? It could swell and get worse over the coming days. So we'll just have to wait and see there. But if James Robinson were to miss, obviously Carlos Hyde is a good player to have on your roster, a plug-and-play low-end RB2 at least. 9 carries for 32 yards, had 6 receptions for 40 yards in the blowout loss to the Seattle Seahawks. So obviously, Carlos Hyde, if James Robinson were to miss, would be a plug-and-play running back. So that's why he's being added. I wouldn't probably spend too much of a fab budget if you did have to, because I think James Robinson will more than likely be playing, but I'm no doctor, obviously. It was looking like it wasn't as severe as some of these other injuries, so I wouldn't be running out there and spending all my money on Carlos Hyde. But if you need a running back next week, he's a potential guy that could be starting, so he must be on the ads list. It is what it is. Boston Scott, gotta talk about him. 12 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns. Could you believe through 8 weeks of the season, Boston Scott has 2 more touchdowns than Miles Sanders does? That's 2-0. The game script is what was the deciding factor for me with Boston Scott here. I was high on Kenny Gainwell because I thought the Detroit Lions would come out and at least play some offense, but they didn't. They didn't show up at all. So Boston Scott, I don't know if I can necessarily trust it going forward. We were talking about sitting Miles Sanders every single week. Why would we be running out, picking up Boston Scott and starting him? Do we think Boston Scott's a better talent than Miles Sanders? Do you think they're all of a sudden going to run Boston Scott because Miles Sanders isn't there? I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, the game script really depended on it. Jordan Howard has twice as many touchdowns. You know what I mean? 2 touchdowns than Miles Sanders. So I don't know if I love Boston Scott going forward because we even talked about sitting Miles Sanders. But he is a starting running back. Kenneth Gainwell still stayed in this role. And at that time, he got some garbage time carries. But we know he's the passing down back. And I don't think the Eagles are going to be in too much positive game scripts like this where they're, blowing out teams. So Boston Scott is an ad in a deeper league. If you need a running back, a potential low-end flex guy on a weekly basis, then you got to be picking up Boston Scott. He does have some value. Now on to the wide receivers. Devontae Parker. Honestly, played good throughout the season. He really has 7 targets in every game he's played. He always has the big play potential, big body receiver, makes plays down the field. 11 targets yesterday, 8 catches, 85 yards. That passing attack, once it gets healthier, I think Tua's going to find a little more room to be able to throw the ball to these other receivers. And I like the schedule going forward. Houston, Baltimore Ravens, a defense secondary that gave up 400 yards over and over and over. And then at the New York Jets. So Devontae Parker's a receiver, in my opinion, that should be rostered. He's under 50% owned. And he should be rostered in every single league, especially with bye weeks coming forward. Yeah, now, yes, you got to realize he has the injury bug. And, you may have to drop him on a weekly basis. But he's a guy that on any given week could have top 20 potential at the wide receiver position. So Devontae Parker, you got to be picking him up here. Van Jefferson, another guy I like to talk about. 6 targets in 4 of the last 6 games. On Sunday, 3 catches for 88 yards. No Deshaun Jackson. And now, yes, it's not a huge volume play here for Van Jefferson, but he's in an explosive offense who's going to throw the football a lot. And I like the options. He's getting it done on a low-end scale. Now, yes, in a deeper league, this is definitely an ad. In a 10-team league, maybe you're not necessarily running out there and picking him up. But if you have a bench spot, I like Van Jefferson. And let's say Cooper Kupp were to get hurt or Robert Woods were to get hurt. Van Jefferson will be a plug-and-play wide receiver 2-3 every single week. So I like Van Jefferson as a potential guy to be picking up this week. They're at the Tennessee Titans, or they're at home to the Tennessee Titans this week, and then at the San Francisco 49ers the week after that. And then Rashad Bateman. This is a guy I would be picking up. Coming out of a bye week, 6 targets in back-to-back games, 3 catches for 80 yards. And Lamar Jackson, he's throwing the ball more. That running game is atrocious. Until they get a running back, trade for one, or figure out what they're going to do, he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. And the defense has been giving up plays, period. So I like Rashad Bateman. He was a first-round pick, for a reason. And going into this offense, if he can get just more and more healthy, getting acclimated more and more, coming out of the bye week, you could see Bateman really being a strong play here down the stretch for fantasy. So I like Bateman as a definite pickup heading into week number 9. And then there's obviously some pass catchers that I don't necessarily love to talk about, but I'll bring them up. Jamal Agnew, I want to say his name is. He obviously saw 12 targets. I don't necessarily love picking up guys on bad offenses, and the Jacksonville Jaguars do not look good. They look good in spurts, but I just can't trust the production going forward. So I'll bring that name up as a guy that if you want to pick him up, I understand 12 targets, but I don't necessarily love it. And then the New York Jets pass catchers, I just can't trust them altogether. It was insane that they beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Put my foot literally in my mouth because I thought there was no way that was going to happen, and it did. So took a big L there, but that's all right. I don't trust any of the pass catchers on the New York Jets. I just can't do it going forward still. Now there's a tight end I want to talk about, Pat Freiermuth. I've talked about him actually a lot in recent shows, especially waiver wires on a weekly basis. He's just upticking. 7 targets in back-to-back games without Juju Smith-Schuster, no Eric Ebron. So Pat Freiermuth going forward is a potential top 10 tight end. And he was talented too coming out of the draft. He was the number 1 tight end behind Kyle Pitts and was highly sought out. So Pat Freiermuth, a good option to be picking up. We know the rookie tight ends, they struggle at times. But over the last 2 weeks, he's been getting it done. And in that offense that wants to play the short game, I like Freiermuth going forward. So that's it. That's the waiver wire. Just some guys that you could be picking up and hopefully filling some holes based on injuries and based on the bye weeks heading into week number 9. So if you have any questions, once again, like I said, drop it in the comment section, and I'll be glad to give you my advice on any players that you're looking at wavering. And then don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share thumb bell for all your fantasy football information all season long. And you can always drop a comment. We'll be glad to give you our opinions on anything football related, fantasy related, whatever. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.